Hi folks, we're going to be using the programs R and RStudio throughout this course, and so in this lecture I'm going to talk a little bit about what those programs are and why we are using them. I'm going to give you some instructions on how to download those programs and give a little preview of how we use them. R is a programming language and a statistical computing program, a program that allows you to do data analysis. In order to do that data analysis in R, we type in code. These are commands that tell R what to do with your data. There can be a bit of a steep learning curve in R because you have to learn how to program in the language that R understands. But a great thing about learning how to program in R is that once you have the basics down, it's really easy to carry out standard data analysis tasks and to innovate, learn how to do new things with data. There are a few main reasons we're using R in this course. R is widely used in data analytics and statistics, and it's also pretty popular in the social sciences, including political science. So for a course on data analysis in political science, it is an appropriate language to focus on. R is also a really powerful program. It can do things all the way from basic arithmetic like addition and multiplication, all the way up to complex analysis of huge data sets with millions of observations. I have some colleagues in the political science department, for instance, who use R to write code for data analysis that has to be carried out on a supercomputer. So R is really flexible and really powerful. Now, there are a lot of other programs that you can use to do data analysis. Most of them cost money to use. They're proprietary programs. R, on the other hand, is free and open source. You can download it to your computer and get started using it for no cost at all. There also is a great and large online user community for R. If you're trying to figure out how to do something in the program, chances are that you can do a quick Google search that'll turn up plenty of results where other R users offer suggestions and sample codes for how to do whatever you're trying to figure out. Knowing how to program in a language like R can be a useful marketable skill depending on the sort of career that you want to go into. If you want to stay in data analysis careers, R is a great language to know because it's widely used. But also, more broadly speaking, if you want to go on to learn other programming languages, it can be useful to have a foundation in a language like R. I've mentioned that R is a really powerful and flexible program, but when you first download R, that version of the program is only able to do pretty basic operations. The key thing here is that R is extendable through free packages that give R lots of extra functions. Packages give R new ways of understanding and executing lots of different commands, different ways of handling data. So later in this video, I'm going to show you how to download your first package for R, because this is a really important part of learning how to use the program. You can download R by going to this cran.r-project.org link that is shown on the slide on your screen. That link is also listed in the syllabus for the course, and I'm going to walk you through how to download R from that link and also how to download RStudio in just a minute. The basic user interface for R is pretty simple and it's not very user-friendly. RStudio is a graphical user interface that'll make your life a little bit easier as you use R. When you download RStudio, if you already have R downloaded on your computer, those two programs automatically find each other. They link up, so you don't have to do any sort of complicated configuration. Just open RStudio when you're ready to do analysis in R, and you're ready to go. You can download RStudio by going to the rstudio.com link shown on your screen, and again, that link is also listed in the syllabus, or you can just Google RStudio. So here's the agenda for the rest of this video. First, I'm going to walk you through how we download R and RStudio so that you can get started using those programs, and I'm also going to give you an introduction to navigating the RStudio interface. I talked earlier about how we use packages in R to expand the functionality of the program. We're going to be using a package called Mosaic throughout the semester, so I'm going to walk you through how we install and load that package, which again is going to be really important throughout this entire semester, so go ahead and follow along with those instructions. And then finally, I'm going to walk you through some basic math functions in R. So let's get started with downloading R and RStudio. This is the R website where you can download and install R. Your first step is to choose one of these download links depending on what your operating system is. So if you have a Windows machine, you'll click Download R for Windows, and then click Install R for the first time. As I record this in August 2018, R 3.5.1 is the most recent version of the program. If you're watching this later, things may have changed, but at any rate, the most recent version of R should be what pops up at the top here. So you'll click download. You will save this application wherever you want it to be saved. Once it's downloaded, open it up, run the installer. It should be a pretty standard installation process. I'm not going to do this because I don't have a Windows machine and I already have R installed, but if you run into any issues, if you're one of my students, feel free to get in touch with me and I'm happy to help you troubleshoot the installation. There are also some installation instructions on this page, answers to some frequently asked questions if you run into any other issues. The process for installing for Mac is pretty similar. Click R for Mac. If you have a relatively recent Mac operating system, El Capitan or higher, you're going to download this most recent package. Again, at this point, that's R.3.5.1. If you have an older operating system, there are some legacy installer packages down here, so you look and see which one is compatible with your version of the operating system. But assuming you've got a relatively recent operating system, we're going to click that package link. You'll save this package archive wherever you want it to be saved. Once it's downloaded, open it up, run the installer. Again, it should be pretty straightforward. This is the RStudio website. From here, click Download RStudio. There are some paid commercial licenses for RStudio, but you don't need any of those. We're just going to click this download link for RStudio Desktop, which is free. That's going to take us down to this Installers for Supported Platforms section here. You don't want any of these zip archives or source code. You're going to pick one of these installers. So if you have a Windows machine, you'll click the top link. You'll save that application and follow an install process. If you have a Mac machine, same thing. You'll save this disk image, open it up once it's downloaded, and follow the install process. And you have some options here if you've got one of these Linux operating systems. I trust that you can figure out which one of those you need if you do run Linux. So with those instructions, you should be able to download R and RStudio. Again, you do need to download both. And once you have them downloaded, you might wonder what those programs look like when you open them up. So I'm going to show you, this is what traditional R looks like. This is what RStudio looks like. We'll get to that in just a second. So traditional R, we have what's called a console. This is an area where you enter code that you want to run, and then the results of running that code print out in this console. So I mentioned earlier that R can act as a calculator. So I can enter, for instance, 2 plus 2. That is code that R understands. And when I run that, when I hit enter in the console, what prints out is the number 4 as the answer, the result of that code that I just ran. Now in the console, I can't go back. If I try and backspace, I can't delete this or edit the code that I just ran. If I decided that I actually wanted to run 2 plus 3, I just need to type that as a new line of code. I can't go back and edit things that I ran earlier. So this is a pretty stripped down, simple interface. Like I said earlier, RStudio is a great program for sort of making it a little bit easier and more straightforward to use R. So when we open up RStudio, toward the left side, you'll see a console that looks really similar to the console we were just looking at in basic R. And then we also have a couple other windows here that I'll talk about in just a minute. But the first thing that I want to show you is opening up what's called an R script. So we're going to open up using this little plus button toward the top left of your screen, an R script. There are also some keyboard shortcuts. We could also do File, New File, R script. There are a bunch of ways to open one of these up. We're going to open up an R script, and an R script is basically a text editing window where we're going to type in lines of code and we're going to be able to edit those lines, rerun things, and we'll write code that we want to ultimately run in the console from an R script. So these are going to be your two basic windows over here. An R script where you're going to write and edit code, and then the console where that code will run and where you will view results. This lower left-hand console window is still something that I can enter code into, and I can execute that code and results will print out just like I just showed you in basic R. But the great thing about opening up these text editor windows is that I can enter code, I can run that code by clicking the run button, or I can hit Command Enter on my keyboard on a Mac or Control Enter on your keyboard on a Windows machine to run an individual line of code. You just have to have your cursor somewhere up in this line. You don't have to highlight the whole line of code or anything like that. Just have your cursor positioned somewhere in the line of code that you want to run, and then click enter, or on your keyboard, command enter or control enter. But also up here in this text editor window in the R script, I can make changes. So if I actually wanted to multiply 5 by 5, I can edit that code up here. I also can save these R scripts, and I really encourage you to do that, to save your work as you go along. This is basically a type of text file, so you just click save, or control save or command save, and then you can just save this file, and then you can open it up in RStudio later. So this is a great place to save your work for lab assignments and homework assignments throughout the course of this class, just to keep a record of what you have done. Something I mentioned earlier is that when we're using R, we're really frequently going to be downloading and using packages that extend the functionality of R. So I'm going to demo how we install a package that we're going to be using throughout the course of this class. That package is called Mosaic. So here in my R script, I'm going to type in install.packages. I'm going to open a parentheses, and then in double quotation marks, I'm going to type in the name of the package. So install.package, and then in parentheses and quotes, the name of the package, Mosaic. And I'm going to run that. And you can see down here in the console, that code is running and the package is installing. And then once I see this little caret symbol down here, the command prompt, that means that the code has finished running, and I don't have any error messages, so it has successfully run. So I have installed the package called Mosaic. Now, just like installing a program, I only need to do this once. Once I've installed the package, it's on my machine, but in order to use it in R, I have to open it up. To open it up, I'm going to use the library command, open parentheses, and then the name of the package. I don't need to have it in quotes. And again, I run that, and what that's going to do is it's going to load this package so that I can use it. I'm going to get these, various messages about how the package has loaded. All of those are fine. So now the package has been loaded. You can see over here in this lower right-hand window, we've got a whole bunch of tabs of things that we can look at. We've got a file browser in case we want to open up files. When we start to do data visualization, there's a plots tab where you're going to see images of visualizations that you create in R. But I really wanted to show you this packages tab. Now I use R all the time, so I've got a ton of packages loaded. But if I scroll way down here, I'm going to see the Mosaic package right here. And there's a check mark in this checkbox to the left of the package. That means that it is loaded. I've used this library Mosaic command, and I've started to use that package. And all of the packages that I have installed on my machine are listed. They're not all loaded. I'm not using all of them. They're not all open in R and ready for me to use. But the ones that are have these check marks next to them. And I actually could check these boxes. I could click on these boxes to load packages instead of using the library Mosaic command. So that's an easy way to see the packages you have loaded and to choose which ones you are using at any given time when you're using R. This is one of the great benefits of using RStudio. One thing to keep in mind when you're writing code in R is that code is case sensitive. So the names of objects like Mosaic and the names of commands like library are case sensitive. So for instance, if I were to enter library with a capital L, Mosaic, and then run that line of code, R is going to give me an error message in this red text here. Error in library Mosaic, could not find function library. That means that there is no command in any of the packages that I have loaded called library with a capital L. Library with a little l is a valid command because I just used it, but library with a capital L is something that R does not recognize. So as you're typing code, it's important to remember that you have to make sure that things are in the correct case. They're uppercase when they need to be uppercase, lowercase when they need to be lowercase, and of course that everything is spelled correctly. R isn't very smart. It doesn't know, it can't sort of assume or autocorrect your code. You've got to make sure that everything's spelled correctly and in the correct case. The first lab for this class, Lab A, walks through some of the stuff that I've just talked about, how RStudio is laid out, how you install and load packages, and then goes further to use the Mosaic package and to start playing with data so that you can get a start using R. I'm going to demonstrate just really quickly a couple of the basic math functions that R can do. I mentioned earlier that R works as a calculator, so I can say 4 plus 4, I can say 4 minus 4, 5 times 5, 5 divided by 2, and I can say, for instance, let's say 6 to the power of 2, or 6 squared, and I can do more complicated functions. R follows a standard order of operations, so I could say 4 plus 3 to the power of 5 divided by 4. And I can run these lines one at a time. 4 plus 4 is 8, 4 minus 4 is 0, etc. Or if I wanted to, I could run all of these individual commands as a whole by highlighting all of those lines of code, and R will spit out a whole bunch of results. So it'll run 4 plus 4, 4 minus 4, 5 times 5, 5 divided by 2, etc., etc. And it'll give me all of those results for those individual commands. And that's it for today. I'm going to close out of RStudio, and it's going to ask me if I want to save my workspace image. That means everything that I've run in this session of R. Usually that is not something that we want to save. Now you might want to save your R script up here. Could give it a name, R script for lecture 5. And then that'll go ahead and save to my desktop where I just saved it. But we don't usually want to save our workspace image. I never do. So that's something for you to know. This is going to prompt you every time you quit R, whether you want to save your R session. Usually, no. We can just go ahead and close out of it. All right, that is it for today. As always, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop me a line. I would love to hear from you. Take care.